Charlotte, thank you so much for sitting down with me today to talk a little bit about your upcoming concert of the Shostakovich Cello Concerto. First of all, can you please introduce yourself and what you're currently up to?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege, not only now, but eventually when I come back to Australia. I'm 23. I'm a cellist. I study here in Kronberg at the Kronberg Academy. Yeah, I am really grateful to be coming to Australia as often as I am this season. And one of those includes Shostakovich with AYO.
And yeah, it's such a great music community in Australia, isn't it? Now,
Mm.
of course, you have many solo endeavors under your belt. As we've said, you've also worked as an orchestral musician. You also have a great love for chamber music.
Mm.
Uh, I'm just curious, what are the ways in which you must adapt or perhaps remain the same in your performance practices between being a soloist, a chamber musician, and an orchestral musician?
I get this question a lot, but I think at the heart of all of these things is not the difference, it's the similarity. It's all just listening in different forms. Yes, you might listen slightly differently when you play a concerto in front of an orchestra instead of playing inside it, but it's all, you're just trying to be the most sort of alive and vulnerable and um, illustrative musician you can possibly be at pretty much all times. And the thing that I really live for in my life is when you have a conversation with someone off stage, like a dinner or something, and then you give a concert straight afterwards, and you can see how you're kind of still conversing on stage. I'm still me, even if I'm not speaking with my mouth. I'm speaking with my hands. I'm still me, and that's what I really strive for all the time.
Mm. And I guess, well, the cello being the one of the ways in which you express yourself. Can you please tell me a bit more about the cello that audiences will hear you play on in this upcoming concert?
Yeah, of course. It's he's a Joseph Hill from 1780, we believe. I've had this cello for about 5 years. I call him Jojo affectionately, um, and I love him so much. He's been a constant companion on loan from Australia. I'm so lucky to have him, and yeah, he'll be coming home with me. So.
Oh, fantastic. So now going towards this Shostakovich Cello Concerto concert, what can audiences look forward to in this concert coming up?
Yeah, it's one of those pieces. I've loved this piece for a really long time, and a lot of people learn it when they're quite young, and it was never a piece that I learned or played when I was young. I heard it many times, but I'd never really approached it myself. And now that I'm a bit older and I have the chance to sort of program things a couple of years in advance, I do get to see like what would I like to learn. Um, and this concerto naturally came up in discussion with Anthony, also because, of course, he and I'm preparing for the Queen Elizabeth Cello Competition, and so I had to pick a concerto for the final round, and he is also conducting the final round. And so he and I together were kind of like, let's do Shostakovich. Um, and I think the audience can really just expect. I mean, when you there's a litany of things that you expect when you see anything by Shostakovich. You expect that kind of human triumph over a regime that was just so soul destroying in so many ways. And that's no exception here. You it's a really exhausting kind of journey. Like there's this machination, there's this machinery in the first and last movements, and then the middle two are kind of more questioning and hopeful and hopeless, and um, it's really the sort of machine on the outside and human on the inside. But I think there's so much in it that everyone can relate to. It's easy, not so much with Shostakovich, but especially with composers like Ligeti or Cage, or like composers that most of an audience might look at and think, "Oh, this is going to be unapproachable." Um, this concerto is really not unapproachable by any stretch of the imagination. Most of us can relate to it on a really deeply human level. I think audiences usually respond really well to this concerto.
So condensing this concerto down, I challenge you to tell me three words you would use to describe this concerto to perhaps a newcomer audience.
All right. I mean, that is a challenge because it does contain multitudes of, like every concerto. But I think my three words are brutal, beautiful, and vulnerable.
Mm. Oh, I love that. I mean, especially the big contrast between these first two words, brutal and beautiful. Can you tell me a bit more about that? What in the music gives these different juxtapositions?
Definitely. I mean, it constantly fights itself. The two outer movements are so they have to have such precision and rigidity. Basically, there's not much scope for flexibility, and that's by design. Really, it's kind of describing in sound a regime that was so uncompromising in so many ways. And then in the middle, we really see that vulnerability and the humanity, and it's so desperate for crying out for anything. There's such introspection in it as well. Um, the cadenza also, especially the third movement, the cello just plays it completely on its own, and we see really that kind of all those shades of private yearning and private grieving and everything. I mean, in an environment where privacy is inherently not allowed, that privacy is such a bold thing to write, especially in a kind of era where cadenzas weren't. It wasn't such a thing to write a massive. I mean, this is not a cadenza in the traditional harmonic Haydn form. It's not. We're not taking the. I mean, we do take the themes of the concerto and we elaborate on them a little bit, but it's definitely not to show off, is it? I mean, it's to reflect this cadenza, and that's what makes it so striking for me, is that juxtaposition between the loneliness and then the not having time or the ability to be lonely, not because you're not lonely, but because you're surrounded by people who are constantly watching you. It's so fascinating. Yeah.
I'd like to now take you back 7 years ago to 2019. You were actually on tour with the AYO playing this very concerto, the Shostakovich Cello Concerto, as part of the orchestra. If you could go back now to your younger self and let her know, hey, we're now playing the exact same piece, same orchestra, but now you're the soloist, what do you think your younger self would think?
Yeah, I mean, so many parallels from that experience. Not only the fact that, we played it in Germany, in German barns, and now I live in Germany, but also that we're playing with Daniel Müller Schott, who is now on the jury for the competition that I'm doing in a couple of weeks. Um, the cello world of the music world is so small and it repeats itself endlessly. Um, New combinations of the same people or people that you've looked up to that you play with now, and that kind of, it's the same names coming back and around again. It's just that you're in the mix and it's so unbelievable to you. No, I think 16, because I was 16 at the time. I think 16-year-old me would be proud, probably, but she'd also be so grateful for an AYO family that has invited me and allowed me to do this, and brought me home basically to do this.
And of course, you were once on the other side of the AYO as part of the orchestra. How did your early involvement with AYO help you as a budding young musician?
Yeah, AYO was my most of my formation as a young musician, I would say. Did so much AYO, 5 years of pretty much doing everything possible at AYO. I made some of my oldest friends to this day, my most valued friendships to this day through AYO. A lot of my teenage years spent playing great music, wandering around Australian cities, wandering around European cities, Chinese cities, um, being free and really falling in love with music, like all of my friends at that age. And I can't thank AYO. I'll never be able to thank AYO enough for what they've done for me, what they clearly continue to do for me, and just the spirit of it. It's a cheeky orchestra. It's a beautiful orchestra. It's full of young Australians, and we're so, in Australia, we're so artistically mighty, and I think AYO is really pushing for us in Australia to recognise that. I love what an institution it is. I love that so many Australian musicians seem to have come through it. And yeah, thank you, AYO.